panel. We'll begin by having our panelists briefly introduce themselves, and then also I'll initiate some conversation by asking commonly open questions. As a reminder, you can also read more about the panelists' bios on our website page, so click on the QR code located on your tables to access their bios. And without further ado, let's start with introductions. And as a reminder, my name is Jenny, and I'll be emceeing for the career panel today. Perfect. So our first panelist is Morgan, and she is a UX designer at Riot Games. Morgan, if you would like to give a brief introduction, feel free to tell us a little bit about yourself, as well as what you would like to do for fun.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me. So yes, I'm Morgan, I work at Riot Games. I currently work on a game called Teamfight Tactics, which is, started off, in case you haven't heard of it, started off as a mode in League of Legends and became really popular, and now it's its own game. So I work on UX design for that game, and let's see, what do I like to do for fun? Spend time with my family. I'm a mom, so just hanging out with my little toddler, and I like lifting weights too.
Hi everyone, my name is Ravi. I'm a creative advertising coordinator at Disney Studios. Right now, our team is working on all the animation that Disney works on, so Pixar, Disney Animation, and coordinating all the print creative for that. And I like trying new restaurants and going to stand-up comedy shows.
Hi everyone, my name is Sabrina, and thanks to Sally for so much for including me today. It's my pleasure to be here. It's a little bit about me. I'm currently a UX designer, product designer at Pinterest. I have a background in fine arts and visual design. So before Pinterest, I was a brand designer at an advertising agency called Ogilvy, where I was designing brand identities, logo posters, and throughout my career as a product designer, I have experience over core consumer products, e-commerce, ads, and some of the recent LM integrated products. And that's a little bit about me.
Hey everybody, I'm Doug. I work at Warner Brothers, the movie studio. I've been there about 6 years or so, and my role has changed quite a bit, but I've always run kind of a centralized design team that handles kind of anything they throw at us, and that can be, I've done, let's see, TV set designs, I've done posters, and I've done websites, apps, I mean, you name it, I've kind of worked on it. So I run this kind of cool like SWAT team, like internal design agency at the company, and it's pretty cool. Yeah. Let's see, for fun, I do everything. I love live music, so I'm always at a show somewhere in LA. LA is like the best city for live music. I love to cook. I love to, I don't know, I just like to be active. I also design a lot on the side, which is weird, but I'm actually kind of Paris Hilton's creative director, which is a little funky, but I designed her son's birthday party a couple weeks ago, which is weird. So I do a lot of side stuff. I'm working on Ad Week right now as well. So I'm big into the freelance side hustle. I think it's big, and we can talk about that as we go along, but I think it's a big part of your lives is to not just do what you're being paid to do on a 9-to-5 basis, but what you can also do in addition to that. So that's me.
Hi, my name is Bernadette Rosarie. I work at Sony Pictures. I do product design as well. I love this side hustle. My side hustle is writing, and I have recently become a Bruin, everyone. I am pursuing, I am pursuing a degree in screenwriting. So I don't have any spare time anymore because I'm now doing homework. But when I did have it, a big part of my joy is writing prose, and I love traveling. I am obsessed with Italy. If you give me a reason to go, I'm there. So there you go. Oh, and I did study sculpture and design. So for those of you who think fine arts and design don't mix, it's baloney.
Thank you to all our panelists for your amazing introductions. So let's get started with the questions. The first question is, can you tell us a little bit about what you do on the daily and what your work consists of?
So as I mentioned, I work on teamfight tactics. Specifically, I work on a round game. So the way that we kind of split it up on our team is that we have some UX designers that work directly on gameplay. So if you're familiar with the game, like actually like the units that you're moving onto the board and like what combat looks like and things like that. So that would be gameplay UX designers. And then we also have around game UX designers that work more on like metagame systems. So for example, like I would be working on things like events, like limited time modes, what like loadouts look like, different menus, things like that. So things that are not necessarily in the game. So that's the bulk of what I do. And in terms of day-to-day, it varies, lots of meetings, unfortunately. I would say that maybe like 25% of my day and week is meetings, and then otherwise it would be in like craft reviews with my teams, and then the rest of the time would be heads down individual work. And yeah, just spend most of my time in Figma and reading Google documents and spreadsheets.
So within creative advertising, my team works in the creative stage, the finishing stage, and the production stage of all the print creative that our team is assigned. And so that's, for me, it's being involved with all the assets and QCing them, working with creative direction, art direction when it comes to the movie posters, the billboards, and the Disney Plus service suite that we work on, because usually one of our theatrical films will eventually go onto the service. So going through that, picking still images, going through what design works for that, and then on top of the creative, it's a lot of busy work of making sure it's legally approved, making sure Pixar likes it, making sure Disney Animation likes it, and kind of coordinating within departments within Disney. So it's a little bit of everything. Every day is a little bit different, and certain priorities will become a fire one day versus another. So it's kind of like you have to be on top of your game and just be very organized. So it's a little bit about my day to day.
So for me, I work on the core service on Pinterest. Basically, designed for different clients like desktop, iOS, and Android. But I want to clarify this common misunderstanding for product designer, as design is like hands-on solo project process and it's one-on-one process, and designers they don't understand business game. But in reality, as Morgan mentioned, our calendar is probably full of meetings. It is, as a product design, is more of a job of communication and collaboration. And a little bit of my day-to-day work, usually in the morning, I'll check emails, like reply Slack messages, and set all the action items for the day, because usually for designers, they have a lot of trivial things to do. And I'll spend the morning, because all my team members are on the West Coast, I'm on the East Coast, and I'm based in New York City. So I'll spend the whole morning hands-on designing. And after lunch is usually a bonus of meeting, like one-on-one lesson managers, teammates, X something meeting daily, like weekly meetings, product reviews for the bigger shops. And yeah, so I'll say design is a continuous process of communication, feedback, and iteration. It's a long-lasting process of problem solving, and in between meetings, I'll like search for inspiration online, conduct research, just use my fragmentary time. And I also have the personal habit of like sketching. I love like just grab a pen and paper, a bit of doodling on my sketchbook to visualize my idea and help me organize myself. Yeah, that's a little bit about my design process.
All right, so day to day. So right now I'm focused on DC, if you guys know DC, which is like Superman.net and stuff. So I run a design team. So what that means is we are actively creating things for that brand, right? So right now I'm focused on building stuff for DC. So what that means is we get product requirements, you get business requirements, you're meeting with those people. And the goal is to create something that people want and that's also going to make money for the company. So the idea is you have a crew that has expertise, and as the leader of that design team, I have to know what they're good at, what they can and cannot do. I have to assign them tasks, I have to make sure they're doing it right. I have to oversee everything they do. And then you're meeting with the executives, you're meeting with stakeholders, you're meeting with whoever to turn these ideas into something real, right? So, and it depends on the phase of the project you're in. So it could be your wireframing, it could be visual design, but ultimately the goal is to take those requirements and turn them into something tangible that the fans are gonna love, right? So on a day-to-day basis, achieving those goals is number one for me, that's what I do. But largely I spend like 8-10 hours staring at a computer screen sitting down. I mean, it's not an exciting thing, but you're actively creating, and you know, it's the tool of the visual designer today that you're sitting in front of a computer. So, you know, it doesn't sound like amazing when sitting in your chair all day long, but it's cool. I mean, for me, creating things on a daily basis is, you know, what I love to do. So that's it.
I do a lot of sitting, but I have one of those up and down desks. And it's really important that you take that time, Doug, to get up. I think meetings are the currency of the realm, but I would say a big part, and I think one of the folks had talked about the importance of communication. I am literally a communication vehicle with so many parts of the business. It's invaluable. And the part I really love is the conversations I get to have with my team as I'm helping, and we help each other push through an issue or a solve. And sometimes you just need a second pair of eyes or somebody to turn around and go, no. And to me, that's the exciting part. So meetings are a big part of my job. Creating an environment in which my team can thrive is a big part of my job. I've had very interesting conversations where you have to help people understand how to work with designers, which really means don't tell them what to do or how to do it, tell them what your outcome is. So helping people understand that is a big part of being a design leader. And I do love sketching. I am a big fan of a giant whiteboard and Post-it. So please, don't be afraid of it. Use it as much as you can, because I really think people are visual, even if they're in finance.
Thank you. Wow, all of our panelists have very diverse skill sets and work across all the industries. On that note, I'm curious to know our attendees, what industries you guys are interested in. Is anyone here interested in working in the gaming industry? Oh, a lot of us. Okay, anyone interested in working in the tech industry? Okay. What about entertainment? We have a lot of entertainment panelists here today. On that note, that really transitions to my next question. What inspired you to pursue your career in the current industry, and how did you get started in that industry?
Yeah, so my path to my career is not linear. I mean, I'm sure nobody's is, but I started off as a biology major here at UCLA. I graduated in 2009, and I started working in the healthcare industry for a while. I originally wanted to be an optometrist, so I got a lot of experience working in eye care, and I worked at Jewel Stein, for example. I worked at Lens Crafters, like all the eye-related places. But I had always had this kind of like passion for design, even at a young age. So in high school and in college, it was something that I always did on the side as a hobby. Like freelancing when I was in college, I was a part of campus events commission here, so doing like movie posters and stuff like that, just to kind of get my creative itch out. But I don't know if any of you have this feeling of parents that have expectations that you'll go into medicine, but that is something that I kind of grappled with. So it took me a while to decide that I wasn't very passionate about healthcare after all. And so while I was working at Jewel Stein, I went back to school, actually at UCLA Extension, and took some design courses. And that's how I kind of got my start in design. So that's the question, right? Okay.
So I didn't go to UCLA. I went to Loyola Marymount University, and I studied multimedia and business marketing. So I've always been someone who, I love everything creative, but I also have that logical side of my mind, and sometimes the creativity doesn't come like immediate to me. So I knew I wanted to do something that involves both. And when I graduated, I got an internship at the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences in their marketing and communications department. And that was my first real experience of a marketing department. They are on the smaller side, but just knowing how it works, knowing how to connect with people, using the different departments to help what you want to do. So that kind of introduced me to the whole side of creative marketing, creative advertising, because it's not really a niche that you certainly learn about specifically in school. So from there, I got my first job as a creative advertising assistant at Lionsgate, and that was really cool, learning not just about like poster and print creative, but also the AV side of things, and also digital and social. And then from there, that was pandemic time, so I switched over to a creative agency called Trailer Park, and I was in the motion graphics department there, coordinating motion graphics they work on titles all across the board, so that was really cool to touch something from Warner Brothers, something from Disney, something from Sony, and all even smaller studios. So that was really helpful to kind of see not just the studio side, the client side, but also life on the agency side. And then from there, a friend had told me about this position at Disney and knew I really wanted to get into movie posters and print creative. So I applied for that, and that's how I got the position I'm in now. So I guess kind of linear, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do until after I graduated. So if you still don't know, that's okay.
So for me, I actually majored in illustration when I was in college. I went to school where you are in New York City. It's a small art school in the city. And back then, when I was growing up, I'm always the artistic kid that loves to draw, like handcrafts. But later on, I realized that wasn't enough for a sustainable career, so I decided to switch to graphic design, where I was able to learn about typography, like motion, packaging, and that was when I got my first job at Ogilvy as a brand designer. Fortunately, I was able to work with big clients like Coca-Cola, Samsung. We redesigned the whole brand identity for New York Philharmonic. And later on, the turning point was really in my senior year, where I took this interaction class in my art school. That was the only UX related course. At that time, I realized that we can design not only cool visuals, but also designs that can help people and make a difference in people's lives actually. So that really sparked my interest in UX design. And during my senior year, I kind of self-taught myself UX by just watching YouTube tutorials, seeking for real-world projects, and just seeking feedback from mentors that I found online. And luckily, before graduation, I was able to got a couple offers from tech companies, from finance, from a couple banking, company from banking industry. Yeah, and so among them, Pinterest is one of my dream companies that I want to work on. So yeah, that's how I landed on my current job right now, which I've been in Pinterest for almost 2 years now. I've worked on ads, search, shopping, where I really enjoy. Yeah, that's a little bit about how do I get to my current position.
So you are doing much better than me, because so my life is not linear in any way at all. It still isn't, but so I was kind of a delinquent growing up. I definitely was. I was skipping school and sneaking out and going to shows and not paying attention at all, failing, that kind of thing. So, but I did get into graphic design in high school, and that was the one thing that really sparked motivation in me. But it really, to be honest, and I barely made it out of high school. So then when my parents, I grew up on the East Coast, and when my parents moved, they kind of retired and went to Pennsylvania in the mountains. I went with them, and it was like this 5-year journey of me living in the woods, and I didn't do anything for a year but read books every day. And I just started to get self-motivated, and I had a fire lit in myself, and I went back to school. I graduated with honors. The day I left, the day I graduated, I moved to New York City with nothing, no money at all, and I just lived on my friend's floor. And really what I did, what started me off, was to go to every single creative placement agency that was in New York City. And I made relationships with all of them. I started freelancing everywhere I could. I just was basically doing as much work as I possibly could. That started me on a path of starting to build a foundation that was like inner strength that I knew I could do this. Then I just started, I got hired, I landed a good job, and I started just to snowball that. And I worked at every major company in New York City. I worked all over the place. And I've been doing this now since, at least 25, almost 30 years. I've been designing my entire life. But no path is linear. Like, don't think you have to do a certain thing to get where you are. You have to find your internal motivation. Like, that's what's key. What excites you? What do you want to do? And then you'll make it happen. Oh, I'm from Jersey.
From Jersey. I'm from Long Island. We're similar. Very good, very good. But when I talk to my sisters, it comes out, and she's like, Bern, what happened to you? And I'm like, I found my R's. I don't know what to tell you. My path, very much like Morgan, I think yours, my parents wanted a doctor or a lawyer really badly. And so what I found is, even in high school, I was always that kid that was good at art. But, my teacher's like, are you going to go to art school? I'm like, no, I actually have a internship at JP Morgan for the next 4 years, which was true. And it was great. And what I learned about life at JP Morgan, besides that we do some really interesting things in finance that one should not do, was that I was really good at business, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. Full on Wall Street stockings wasn't gonna work. And what I decided when I was doing this, I always did art on the side. So even in college, even though I was an economics major for the first 2 years of my life, some of it did take me longer than 4 years as well, I had completed a year of art classes because I talked my way in to the classes for majors. I was like, I'm good enough. I'm also very competitive. And so what I would say is my career really was this moment when I was like, hey, Mom and Dad, I love you, but you got divorced, so really being a good girl is not helpful for you. I also talk too much because I'm from New York and I'm really a blunt person. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to art school. And I went to art school and I kicked it. And then, it was nice because it was a dot-com boom and they looked at me and said, you're young, do you know about computers? And I'm like, yeah, I do. I kind of like to play with them. And before I knew it, I was leading new media. That was exciting. I was in the agency world. If you do consider agency life, I will give you 2 things. You are going to learn so freaking much in that environment. Do it, but it will burn you out like crazy. So no, you're going to learn more than you ever could, but it's a hard life. Don't stay in it too long because it'll make you crazy. The other part that was interesting for me is that the dot-com bubble burst, and I found myself having been with a startup. And I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to start my own company. And I ran my own agency for 20 years. And I did everything from high-end skincare to Gucci to that to toilets. I have designed touchless toilets, people. And I will tell you, it was as much fun doing the research for that as it was creating high-end fashion brands. So I came to California with a startup. It was amazing. It was YouTube before YouTube existed. And then I found myself living the life, and Sony was actually one of my clients. And that's how I am now in M&E. So it is a wonderful journey, and I hope you all take it up, and you don't have to start in it, is my other lesson.
Yes.
I wanted to add one thing. So when we're doing I want to add for internships and everything we're talking about, Douglas and Bernadette, they're obviously a lot of senior, right, executive level, but everything they said is still very true for people our generation, our age, right? And it's also very niche, of course. So even for myself, my background, you see it as very linear from the outside on LinkedIn and other places. But once you get to know everyone, it will always be very unconventional. So I think the panel that they shared, that will really help you with that foundation, right? Because a lot of you were asking, hey, my background's different, my background's different. So everyone's working on that. Like even for me, I very similar to Bernadette. Like, am I pronouncing it right?
Yeah, you call me Bern.
Yeah, I went to design school, I had to do 5 years part-time grad internship. Family didn't understand it, very Asian, right? Like they're like, you have to be a doctor, kind of like what makes it. So all those things, it will be true every generation, right? So don't think that because it's so much more competitive nowadays, I have an excuse, right? Because it's going to be competitive every year, right? So I think too, it's really helpful. It's even helpful for me to listen to it right now. So we'll be using it all.
One of the things that I think is very powerful in this conversation, because I've heard it on many panels, is the idea that your family doesn't understand the choice in an artistic career. And my parents, my mom is Dominican, my dad is Puerto Rican, so, you know, the impetus of an immigrant family is to ensure that you will survive. And what I want to let you know is that creative careers can feed you well, but you gotta hustle and you gotta work, and that your background, whatever it is a plus. So please take that and know you will be okay, and there is money to be made.
Thank you for sharing, for all our speakers as well as our keynote speaker as well, share your insight. And as we've all heard, everyone comes from a different path and different walks of life. So especially for all our students here, we have everyone from freshmen who said this is their first conference and they're thinking about design, and then we have seniors who are graduating perhaps with internships or full-time roles or even taking a gap year to graduation. So I think everyone could definitely take away from what our panelists have said. Moving on to the next question, I wanted to ask, can you share any personal experiences that really shaped, that was very pivotal in your career in the design field that maybe offer more lessons towards our designers?
Sure, so I think I'll kind of segue into this because it's pretty related. So I think that the biggest point in my career was the very beginning when I switched over. So as I had mentioned earlier, I was working in healthcare, and the first step after finishing UCLA Extension was to try to find an internship. But I was older already, so I was several years out of college already, and all the internships were mostly people that were still in school or freshly graduated. And so when I finally did get my first internship, I was the oldest person there. I felt kind of ashamed, or I don't know, I felt embarrassed. It felt weird. But after I was able to just swallow whatever ego I had, I fully embraced being the newbie. And in that internship, I pretty much just tried to act like a sponge as much as possible. So I was just asking as many questions as I could, just being really eager. Basically, I think Milka mentioned earlier, don't just give 100%, give 125%. And so I would say, reflecting back on that internship, I really busted my ass on that to try to, I guess, impress the people that were around me, try to learn as much as I could. I was trying to get a position at this company, so I was really trying to prove myself. So it was just a really important thing to forget what people might think and just embrace the journey, and yeah, just remain open. So that was my biggest, I guess, learning or big thing in my career.
I think my experience would be just before I even started my career, because I did the same thing throughout college, applying for internships anywhere and everywhere, and seeing other people get all these different ones and wondering, what am I doing wrong? What should I be doing different? All of that stuff. And I did 1 or 2 internships towards the end of my college career, but then when I was applying for after college, I think I was applying to every single job, every single internship, nothing. I didn't hear back from anybody, but the only company that I did hear back from was the academy. And that obviously was a big deal, and also just the position that kickstarted my whole career and introduced me to this world of creative marketing, creative advertising. So I think my piece of advice is, don't get down by the rejections. It only takes one, and that can really kickstart you to whatever path that you didn't even think you wanted to be on, that suddenly you're on and you're suddenly finding all this passion for it.
So when I first started my first gig as junior product designer at Pinterest, At that time, I was young, I was really eager to learn. I told my manager I wanted to take on as many projects as possible. So one of the projects I took was a data-driven project. At that time, I was working on this project for 3 months in silos, and I was so excited about the progress that I was making. But then out of the blue, I found out that the project was being cut. I was so frustrated at that time, and I feel like, oh, they should have just told me earlier. But later on, I realized that the decision was probably well communicated among like managers or the leads. But as a junior IC at that time, I was not in the loop. So I did a little reflection here. I think part of it is because I wasn't being proactive enough in work. If I had shared my work more broadly in meetings and making an effort to be more visible, people will have known that I work on this. But just sharing my point of view in the meetings, I could have be part of the decision-making process and learn about the product direction sooner, so that I can better allocate my time to other projects more effectively. So I think the lesson learned here for me is to always take an effort to be visible and always ready to share a point of view in meetings. Yeah, I think that's really important to becoming a better designer, especially in bigger tech companies.
So I've learned so many things, I could probably fill a book like this. I want to tell you guys I guess the first thing that I learned that I felt was important. And so when you're young, or when I was young, and you're watching TV at home and you are watching a movie, you have this kind of sense of awe, like, wow, who are the people who make this stuff? And who are these people and how do they do this? And you're just kind of, it's a wonderful thing, right? You just don't understand, you can't comprehend it, and you're just like, these people must be magicians or whatever. So after a few years of freelancing, I landed a gig at Food Network. I don't know if you guys know Food Network, but so Food Network at the time was just getting started, and it was very small. So I was routinely getting into meetings with the president of the company, which is weird, right? Because the company's small, so everybody's meeting, you're talking about what's going on. And I just distinctly remember after many sessions that I'm like, these people don't know what they're doing. Everybody is just as confused, just as lost as everyone else. The president on down, they're making their best guess. They're making guesses based on their experience. They're not like, nobody is 100% like, yeah, this is going to be a hit or this is going to be great. Not a single person acts like that. There's no sense of like, of knowing everything. And so that was really eye-opening to me, as coming from being a small kid and being just in awe of how these things are made, and just to understand that the people who do it are in the same boat as I am. And to understand that really gives you perspective on the things you can create in the future, and that you can do anything that you want to do, really. So yeah, just, everybody's confused.
I think one of the things that is a gift of being a designer is that you see that design is everywhere, and you see that somebody made something. And it also lets you know that because somebody made it up, it's not immovable. You can remake it up. You can recreate it. And I think sometimes that's irritating to people who know me, because I'm like, why do we have to do it that way? Couldn't we do it this way? But that superpower helps change the direction of companies. So I want you to know, most everything that's designed, whether it's a physical thing, an object, a system, was created by somebody. So you have a right to question that system, and sometimes it's part of your job to do so. And then I would say, the other thing for me is this idea that it's going to be okay, is the thing I learned about in design. Because, and I'll have you know, if you do go into, and if you are considering your own company, I'd love to tell you about that path. Because it is one of the most rewarding and frightening moments. And you will be sitting there, figuring out how you're gonna make payroll. You're gonna be sitting there where you have a client, and this is a true story. I had a client, and he was a CEO, he was fantastic, and he introduced me to his board of director chief. and he wanted me to do work for his company. And I went to the company, and I kid you not, it was like a bunch of Gordon Geckos, slick back hair, bros, sorry if I offend anybody, in the room, and I was showing them a piece of user research. And there was a woman on the screen, and she was someone we had interviewed, and she had this job in a paint department for a company I was working for, and there was just a disrespect to that user. And I was like, I am not working for these folks. And that had huge implications, because I knew this was my client's boss who controlled. I was gonna lose my client, I was gonna not get this gig, and I was like, but I know if I sit in a room with you, and these folks who do not respect other people, I'm gonna lose my soul, and you're gonna chew up my team. And I walked away from that job, and other good jobs flowed in, but there are gonna be times when you are faced with things, and what I would say to you is, if it doesn't feel right, and these aren't people you should spend time with, do not put yourself in that position. It is not worth it to your soul, it is not worth it to your company. It will be scary as get out, but you can make those kind of choices.
Thank you so much. I also wanted to ask, are there any specific portfolios, projects, or skills that you think that would increase students' chances when applying internships or jobs for design firms or companies?
So besides your portfolio, I think that one of the biggest things is soft skills, honestly. You're gonna be using that a lot, and especially like in your first impression with your interviewer and the hiring manager, they wanna see how well you communicate, and especially as a UX designer, that's such a significant part of your job. So being able to communicate, being able to defend your design decisions, being persuasive, being compelling, so all of those things, like in addition to, backing up what you're talking about with like the work that you have. And also don't lie in your portfolio. So if you're on a group project, don't say that you did the whole thing yourself. Like, people will usually know. So those are my tips.
I would say when it comes to the advertising world, things change very quickly, and sometimes you only learn about it like day of or whatnot. So being able to learn how to pivot and adjust and be flexible, I think that's really helpful. And then also emphasize the introduction when you're in an interview. People are looking for obviously the technical skills that you bring, but there's so many people who are talented, so many people who can do those things. If they have like 3 people who can do the same amount of technical skills, they're probably gonna pick someone who they enjoy, who they're gonna work with every day and actually want to talk to and like have a good personality. So I think showing your personality and showing that you are like enthusiastic about the job and like will bring good energy to the team. I think that's pretty helpful, because sometimes like an interviewer is at the very end and there are like 2 or 3 really great people. You don't know what goes into that, but as long as you put your best self, not just portfolio wise, but self wise, I think that's really helpful.
Okay, so I guess I'll talk about some tips for the portfolio itself. I think 3 things. First is design consistency. I think this is especially a lot of like recruiters from tech company they look at, because they want to know like if you have the ability to create consistent design across different surfaces on the same platform. So in your portfolio, just make sure whether it's like a shared color scheme, the design component, or like layouts, trying to make sure it's consistent throughout. And second, I think, is visual language, because unique visual language will speak a lot about you, like your design sensibility, your aesthetic, and like your personality to some degree. So it can really help your recruiter to learn you better as a person. And I think lastly is attention to detail. This is really important for like all designers. Just make sure to double check everything before applying, and because I think a recruiter will treat your crafts in your portfolio as what you will actually do in actual work. So yeah, that is really important.
Yeah, so Morgan's right. I think, and I say this to every single young designer, the number one thing you guys need to learn how to do is to present your designs. It's literally probably the most important thing, because you can make a Picasso, I mean, you can do the most beautiful thing. If you can't sell it, to somebody, or if you can't explain it, then, you know, you're not gonna go anywhere with it. So yeah, I completely agree. But as far as portfolios go, don't dribble it, like don't say don't dribble, like I don't know, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world today where you can look at everybody's work really fast, and everybody's work looks the same. So I look at it that, so if I put a job posting up, I'll get 1,000 applicants in a day, and it'll be a flood, right? So, and you have to go through all of these. And the one thing that I always see is that younger designers always do the same exact thing. Everybody's looking at each other's work and they're all just, oh, that looks great, let me do that. I would say that's the number one thing to not do. If you want to stand out, if you want to make, because you have to stand out. There are this group of people in every single school and like all over the world trying to do the same thing. And if it's a big company like Meta or Warner Brothers or Sony or whoever, everybody wants to work there. So you have to find your way in and you have to make a difference. So it's super important. But also when you structure, so once you get past that hurdle, you have to know what you're going after. So you have to structure your portfolio for the job you want, right? So if you're going for UX, UI, you shouldn't be putting graphic design in your portfolio. It's nice to know that you can do it, but the focus is on, I need somebody in my team who can do this. And if you can do it, then that's great. Show me that you can do it. So you want the other stuff, it's great to know what else you do and be well-rounded, but you have to focus it on the job you want. And if that means like redoing it every time, like, oh, I'm gonna go, then you have to do that. So, couple tips.
Very fine tips. It's hard being the last one in the row, folks. I think the one thing I would say is communication about what you've done. And I think if you has everybody heard of the concept of when you're preparing for an interview, having star stories, okay? Understand the story you want to tell. I'm not going to tell you to over-rehearse it, but I'm going to tell you to think about it. And really, if you're a person, knowing what's going to help you prepare, if it's writing a little script for yourself beforehand so you get it in your body, that's really important. And then I would say attention to detail. Show your work to as many people as you can, because they're going to see something. They're going to catch that, and I will tell you, if the designer sends me something that's not been kerned properly, I will see it immediately. And I will toss it. And I will do that with typos, because you just put yourself at the bottom of the pile because I didn't see the care. So if it is, you get so many, you're looking for any reason to winnow that pile down.
We just heard such amazing advice, so thank you to all our speakers. Because we're running a little bit out on time, I do want to open up the floor now for your participation, for all of you guys to ask our speakers directly if you have any questions that you might have. Feel free to raise your hand. Unfortunately, our speakers, our mics are connected by wires, so please project, and then also mention your name and maybe what you're studying as well.
Sorry, I think I just have to leave to catch a flight. Thank you so much for including me here. So much, Sabrina. Thank you for connecting me over. My name is just Sabrina. Happy to connect you over.
Thank you, Sabrina. And also, you have a gift for me, so please see Nina for that. So, thank you. Did anyone have a question? Yes.
My name is Stephanie. I'm interested in the intersection of game design and UX. So I'm really curious about everything. You said you started off in healthcare. I'm just wondering what made you choose the gaming industry. Why?
So the question was, starting in design, what made me go into game design, game UX design? So believe it or not, I'm not a hardcore gamer. I'm a very casual gamer, and what drew me to apply to Riot was not necessarily League of Legends or anything. And I want to admit this, but I didn't really play League of Legends going into applying to Riot, but I had visited the campus, and they happened to have a panel just like this for a design event, and I was really inspired by some of the leaders that were speaking on that panel that were at Riot, and so that gave me the impression that the leadership team and the design team was really solid, and I wanted to surround myself with people like that, and I wanted to be a part of their team, so that's the reason why I applied to Riot.
Thank you. Does any of our panelists want to give any insight on that, or should I just move on to the next question? Yeah, we're good. Okay. Does anyone else have a question? Yes, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Shane. I'm studying computer science right now, but I was wondering, before you got your first industry position, what do you think made you stand out? What do you think allowed you to get that position?
Well, my first couple roles were really freelance, and my path is crazy. But what I did was I went to all these temp agencies and they test you, right? So they're on the ball. They're like, what are your skills? What can you do? And then I also was big into making stuff on my own. So at the time, I was coming up with a lot of designers, and they wanted to get into advertising, and we would do stuff where I would send him a note that'd be like movie poster with a title, and he would have to send back a design like within a couple of days, and then he would send me like an album title, and then I would have to design the cover and everything. And so we did this for a long time. And what that did was it built up all my work. It started building up all this kind of graphic work, and also honed my skills. So then in my portfolio, I had a lot of these other pieces. It was cool, right? But yeah, I mean, I think, and when I got my first role, it was pretty like bottom of the rung, like doing ad unit, like doing really menial tasks. So I really clawed my way up through organizations and did it that way. Don't expect to be patient. It's like, please be patient, please work hard, please do everything you can in the trenches. It's super important to build up those skills when you're young, and that's how you're going to stand out ultimately, right? And people will recognize it. Yeah. With that answer.
I think what Milka said about building your networks, I'll be honest with you, every job I've ever gotten is because of a friend. And that my college roommate got me my first job in publishing. My job that brought me to California was from my co-station manager. I ran the radio station. So I think it's understanding that everybody who is around you is a potential opportunity, and vice versa, right? Like it's about feeding into that. I think sometimes people think it's about competition. I think you all rise together. So build those networks. And I met Milka when I was part of AIGA. And so when I see her up there, I'm like, yeah, you go, Milka. Again, somebody who you're going to see who's going to invite you to meet wonderful folks. So join these groups because, I can get 5 million resumes, but the one that Milka sends me is the one I'm going to look at deeply.
Yeah, that's the most important thing you're going to hear is the networking, because, and Vern's right, you're going to get a job because you know somebody at the place, or you work with them and they know you and they're going to bring you over. Or if somebody applies for an internship, you want to stand out, it's good to like write to them. You know somebody in the company, write to them, get your resume in front of HR through somebody you know. That is a golden tip. To be honest, it's probably the best thing, is to know people. Start your network now, and that network will grow as you grow, right? And stay close to everybody, and that's how and all of a sudden your best friend is CEO. It's like, what? That's what happens. Like all my friends are like, I mean, how are you running this company? So, but they're going to reach out and like, hey, can you come on over and be my CMO or CCO? And it's like, yeah, all right. So that's how it works. But I mean, obviously you have to be good at what you do too. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah, believe it or not, majority of our panelists that we have here, we just cold reached out on LinkedIn, and then that's how we got this connection. And just everyone here, just being here today, that's already one step into networking, because you guys are taking your time and being proactive about it. And then you could always maybe cold reach out on LinkedIn after this and be like, oh, I saw you speak at this panel, or you can even talk about it during your interviews as well. As a graduating senior who also works at entertainment companies, that has definitely worked for me. So I highly recommend it to you all here today as well. Okay, and then let's take one more last question for today.
Yeah, so my name is Kareen, and I'm currently pursuing a degree in communications, but I want to go into brand design. resources or skills you recommend building on the side? And are there any particular resources online, whether paid or free, that I can utilize?
For us?
For you guys.
Cool, yeah, that's a great, branding's great, so I do a lot of that as well. I'm doing a big branding project right now for Ad Week, and it's gonna launch in about a month, so. But yeah, no, so branding is a different beast. It's a huge, a very unique part of design, right? You're creating an identity, and that identity is representing this entire company, right? And that's about making a feel. How does it feel? You're trying to design something that makes people feel a certain way, and that they want to be a part of. They want to wear something because it makes, like, it represents them, right? So branding is super important. And there's no one way to go. I mean, but it's all you can find inspiration. And I can give you some recommendations for books to read. So you can get the classics, but the funny thing is, and I read a lot of autobiographies, and I just read 2 books that I would highly recommend. This is a weird recommendation, but this gets into the core of what creativity is. So the first one is by Rick Rubin. I don't know if you guys know, he's a producer. Yeah, so this book is all about what it means to tap into the subconscious of your brain to be creative. And it's one of the best books I've ever read about what it means to be a creative person. So it's called, anyway, check that book out. It's really amazing. Yeah. By Rick Rubin. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, sorry about that.
It's the Creative Act. It's got this great cover with a big round circle.
Yeah.
It's juicy. Get it.
Get it, and you'll read it fast. The first couple chapters are a little hokey, like a little spacey, but then get into it again. But branding is all, you get inspiration from every part of life. It's not just about looking at books. It's like pulling from nature. It's pulling from everywhere. Because brand identity comes from anything. So I think, you'll find everything will inspire you. But also, to your other question, it's like you want to do stuff on the side, and I was trying to get into that in the beginning, right? It's not just about your 9 to 5. So I have this habit, if I'm in a meeting that's boring, which I'm in a lot, and I sit in meetings for an hour and I don't have to talk, because I just have to be there. I will design something. I'll force myself to design something in that 1 hour. And a lot of times it's like a cover for like a Spotify playlist or something. Something stupid like that. But I'll say, all right, I have 20 minutes. I'm going to design a cover for this thing while I'm in this meeting, and then I'm just going to do it and make something cool. So just do stuff like that. In the same way that I did with my friends getting started, find a partner. It's like a pen pal type thing. Just design to design, create to create, and you will learn how to be creative. And it's all about just doing. The people who are successful are the ones who do the work, who work hard, they stay at it. They're constantly working. I'm going to go home from this, and I'm going to work. I'll probably work till like midnight tonight, because I'm doing like 4 projects right now. So, and then I'm going to wake up. I'll probably wake up at 5 a.m. and like work for 3 more hours. That's just the way. I mean, I do a lot of fun stuff too. But I'm just saying, like, the people who do the work, just like musicians, famous musicians, like Beyonce, whoever, they're working all the time. Like, they're nonstop thinking of music. Everything is always informing them. When you're walking down the street, you're designing in your head. And brand design is all about that. It's very different than UX, UI design. So I don't know if that was rambling, but you got a nugget of something in there.
Well, I think you nailed it. The idea that the Creative Act, I just finished that, it's also really cool. He's behind a lot of the, all of rap. He's behind most of that beginning in that genre. So he's an incredibly interesting person as well, and kind of looks like a guru. But the whole point is that if you've chosen creativity as a path, and I don't care if you started in biology or you started in engineering, everybody has the power to be creative. I just don't think everybody has the courage to take on the lifestyle, okay? So what I would say to you about branding, because I've built brands, is I agree with you that it's all aspects and all touch points. Learn the language of branding so that if you're in a conversation, people will understand, you know their language. But what I would say for branding, or for any of the things you take on, every movement everything you're doing every day is feeding your brain, right? And it shouldn't be. And I actually encourage you not to do the thing you get paid to do. I encourage you to go to theater and look at the lighting. I encourage you to go to shows and be like, why is that music killing me inside? Why is it driving me to emotion? And you know, at Sony, we have so many brands, and we all have one unifying thing, which is that we want to bring the world emotion, whether I'm doing PlayStation or I'm at Sony Pictures. So be an observer. Your whole body, your whole life is about living, observing, and being. And the more you tap into that, and the more comfortable you are and going deep into that, the better your work's going to be. And that shows. I sound so emphatic all the time.
The creative act.
So I hope everyone
We're
took
getting
notes.
paid by the word.
So I hope everyone took notes about that book because it sounds amazing. Because you know, I don't know about you guys, but the second I finish cleaning up, I'm gonna buy that book on Amazon. So buy it before it sells out. But I think branding definitely extends more upon like beyond the products that you guys are branding, also branding yourself as a person, as an individual, and at those interviews as well. It's really important to end honestly on your portfolio. Well, on that note, we are coming towards the end, so I really wanted to thank our panelists for coming here today, as well as everyone here for showing up on Thank you.